is the pernicious purveyor of preposterous pomposity, the king of Connecticut, back here once again at the Berman Law Group, Berman Team Podcast Studios with a very special guest. She is a recent graduate of the Charleston School of Law, and she is a very impressive social media influencer. Let's welcome Victoria Vesce. Victoria, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. So I actually live on Johns Island, right outside of Charleston. That's my primary residence now. And I love Charleston. Love it there. Is that where you grew up?
No, I actually grew up in Eastern North Carolina, and I moved to Charleston for law school. But my parents got married in Charleston, so it's always a place near and dear to my heart.
Such a cool city. Brittany, have you been to Charleston?
I haven't, but I've seen, actually a friend of mine went like a few years ago, and I saw photos, and it just seems so quaint, like a little cute little town.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would really like to visit there. I'm a Floridian, and I'm like the typical Floridian that never leaves Florida because there's so much to do and so many places to go in Florida. And so I'm like, I don't travel much. I really haven't. I've gone to the basics, but never been in Charleston.
What I would compare Charleston to in Florida is St. Augustine. It's
Yeah, I
very
love St.
similar to
Augustine.
St.
I was about to
Augustine.
say St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bigger than St. Augustine. But
Got the
similar.
old world charm
Yep.
and
Yeah.
the colorful
love it.
buildings and the southern cuisine.
Right.
So it's
Yes.
definitely a place you should stop and
I would.
visit.
It's honestly, it really is like on my bucket list because it just looks so cute. I love that stuff. I love history and I love like old towns and whatnot. So it definitely looks like a place I'd like to visit for sure.
And I'm going to say for me, for this Yankee coming from Connecticut, Charleston, Johns Island, James Island, Isle of Palms, the Charleston area, and Florida kind of melt together. I mean, it's very similar weather. You have the palm trees and the great beaches. Charleston has some
And the
great
hurricanes.
beaches and the hurricanes. That's right.
Yeah, we
That's
get all
right.
that good stuff in Charleston
Absolutely.
as well.
And you know what we say in Charleston, I've been in South Carolina for, God, it's been 15 years. But I lived in the middle
Always loved animals, wanted to be
awesome.
a vet, but I hate blood and anything bodily fluid. So I was like, nope, that's not for me.
I might not be the greatest avenue.
Yeah.
So he had mentioned you are, I guess you consider yourself like an influencer. I guess how did you get started with
Well,
social
I guess
media?
other people consider me an influencer. I just consider myself good old Victoria.
You have a lot of followers. I would
Yeah.
consider you influencer. You've got a ton of followers.
Well, it just kind of grew over the years. I started Instagram probably right when it came out. I was doing all like the basic filters on Instagram, just posting like everyday life. And then when I became an NBA dancer for the Charlotte Hornets, my following grew even more. And then I became a monster girl and traveled the NASCAR tracks, and then it just kept growing. It was just like a snowball effect of growing
I'll tell
for
you,
whatever
that's-
I did.
I don't know if you know, Holly Cagley used to work for me. She was with Monster. She was the Monster. I hired her when I was with brewing companies, when I had the Southeast region. And I actually have a Monster. I have a Monster four-wheeler.
Oh, Monster Foot, that's cool.
I got it from her. She gave it to me as a gift when I hired her. It was a floor model four-wheeler that they had. And y'all were running an event, like, to win the four-wheeler.
That's awesome.
And she gave it to me as a gift when I hired her. And I still ride that Monster four-wheeler.
That's pretty.
That's so
That's a pretty
cool.
sweet gift.
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
You know what's weird is I don't even like, and this is no offense to influencers out there. I hate the term influencer.
Yeah, me
like I wish it was called, because it is a legitimate
Yeah.
job, I guess, for people. That's all they do. That's how they make their money. But it's like, where did that term come from?
I guess
don't
you're
feel
out here
like-
influencing people with your following.
buying this, buying that.
Inspiring. I don't know. I call it more of like a social media specialist.
Or even just like I don't know what else I would
I'm
call
going
it.
to tell you, Brittany, this is my perspective as I would say an old man, but as a middle-aged man myself, that my daughter's about to be 20. She's 19, and she's got the same thing. She doesn't have as many followers as you, but she's got a lot of Instagram followers. And I had this discussion with her. I said, you and your friends, you really don't watch movies anymore.
Yeah.
And you kind of you're fans of people in your own age group that are Instagram. That's what they watch. And that's what she is aspiring to be like growing that and then getting people to advertise. And I think that's kind of the way it's going, because think about it in media, and I've worked in media. I worked with Spike TV. I mentioned on another episode with Spike TV and with Bellator Fighting Championships. It was neck and neck with UFC back in the day. And that's all going away.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have cable. People under 30, 35, they don't have cable TV anymore.
Right.
It's all social media. So the celebrities, the stars, you mentioned Wonder Woman. Think of
I'm
older guys.
trying. So actually, my dad and I are like in the process of potentially filming a TV show, and I had to push for him for that. He is very anti-social media, anti-anything, but he'll sit and watch TV on his phone. So I'm like, Dad, I gotta have you in because he is funny. Sicilian man from the Bronx. Strong
awesome.
accent.
Crossing generations like that would be
Yeah.
good for you for your show too, because it'll bring in, different groups.
Yeah.
Because when you have your friends on, you're just locked into that one, like young demo.
Yeah.
Gotta get us old
I
guys.
feel like my show is mostly geared towards millennials or Gen Z. For the most part, you kind of have to have that like focus on who are you actually geared to. But I've had every demographic tell me they're like tuned in and they learned something new. So
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
okay,
Yeah.
hey, that's great. Yeah, but I'm trying to get like, males, females on, talk about dating, get all different perspectives, and talk about life in general. So we'll see how it continues to turn out. But I try to film at least 2 episodes per week. One where I'm solo talking, answering questions, talking about what I think is important generally for myself, and then I'll bring a friend in and we just kind of talk about whatever. I think the last one I did, we talked about moving to a new state across like the country in your 20s and how to get
Gotta
over that
navigate that.
hurdle and meet new people and friends. So
What do you see as the big difference between down here in South Florida and Chucktown, Charleston?
honestly, I don't feel like in Boca Raton in specific, I don't feel like there's much of a difference. It gives me the same
Yeah, it's pretty similar.
vibe,
Yeah.
but like you go down to Miami, it's a lot different. It's more like European vibe.
Yeah.
A lot
Miami's
of
a different-
diversity. Yeah,
Is a different state.
It's
there's
right
more
up the road.
diversity
Too.
there.
Floridians, we don't go to Miami.
But traffic is like way crazy here, and I feel like being in the personal injury realm, I see like 10 accidents a day just going on I-95. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
It's a good.
I finally got a sun pass though, so I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna
Oh, nice.
skirt past all these people.
That's one thing in South Carolina we didn't have to deal with much as the tolls.
Oh yeah.
Except unless you get, I think there's one that's up by Spartanburg or Greenville. It was like the only.
That's when you're getting close to like Charlotte.
Yeah, yeah.
North Carolina just implemented some like toll expressways,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's something I didn't have to deal with. But I'm glad I have a sun pass here. It's the little things that count.
Yeah. It definitely helps, that's for sure. So do people, you say like DMs and whatnot, do people ever like try to, or like ask you questions like, what do you look for in a guy? Or like, you said
We should
you're,
ask you those.
are you single? Are you
Yes,
dating?
I'm
Okay.
single. I'm single.
Okay, so like if people are like, oh, like why are you single? Or people always ask that, like why. It's like, well, some people maybe they just haven't found the right person yet, or maybe they
Yeah,
just choose to be
that's
because
where
they're
I'm at.
focused on But I mean, do you get questions like that? And also like, I mean, what do you get, or what do you look for? I guess in somebody.
Yeah, so my DMs are very interesting
Yeah.
for a single woman. You get some questionable DMs or like, ask
Yeah.
me on dates. And then a lot of people are like, oh, what qualities do you look for? I feel like I've been on a lot of dates
Yeah.
in my life. And so I feel pretty basic with like what I want in a
Yeah.
man. Still haven't found someone to hit that baseline yet. But
Yeah.
I've really been focused and in tune
Yeah.
with my success and building who I am as a person and professionally and even spiritually, mentally, emotionally, being set before I find someone else. I think it's truly important that you have a strong foundation.